Welcome to Sports, Clicks, and Politics with your hosts, Ben Hussong and me, Shawn Hannon. Welcome to episode 13 of Sports, Clicks, and Politics. Today is a special edition. We have our first live interview here at Sports, Clicks, and Politics. We are welcome to our County Executive Ryan McMahon here in 2 seconds. Ben, how was your weekend?
It was great.
Ben, how was your weekend? Anything
it was
exciting?
Great. Not as exciting
anything
as
exciting?
Our interview, I'll tell you what. Not as exciting as our interview.
I'm excited about our interview as well. I'm excited about our interview as well. You guys may know the county executive. Ryan McMahon. Ryan, are you there with us? Can you hear us? Ryan, are you there with us? Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
I can't see you yet, so I'm going to keep manipulating here. But while I fix the video, was tipped off to something over the weekend that your family may be fans of the TV show Parks and Recreation. Is that true?
That is true. Actually, my guy now have been watching that show, and I got to watch it originally, but I got to get caught up.
All right. So follow up. Who's your favorite character on Parks and Rec? Why is it Ron Swanson?
So, well, my family love Ron Swanson because they view Ron a very libertarian department head of the Parks and Recreation, and so they think it's funny. Kate actually, Shawn, compared you to Ron a little bit with some of your political leanings.
He's my spirit animal. So that's fitting. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the beginning. I want to touch on real one thing before we talk all things COVID. Do you have anything you'd like to talk about the Amazon project at all here? I know that's kind of been a big thing here locally, but before we get into craziness, let's talk about something maybe more positive.
Certainly. We have 2 projects with Amazon. The one being the very large, really second largest logistics e-commerce facility in the world. They're replicating this model in other regions of the country, but we are the first one. We announced this project in 2019. We got a quick time to be able to secure the lease, secure the business with Amazon. So right now, if you go out on Morgan Road, you'll see what is a massive facility being built. Hundreds and hundreds of people locally working on spending millions of dollars here locally to help support our local businesses. And then again, by September 2021, we're going to have that ready for operation, and well over 1,000 local residents will. That a smaller project is going on out in DeWitt, where that construction is going to be started. And again, more local workforce opportunities, more employment opportunities. With all the construction going on in our community right now, the trades and construction companies are doing quite well. It's many sectors that are not doing well. So that is good news. In 2021, those jobs will be very, very important to our recovery. And we're just glad that we were able to get that deal done and it wasn't impacted by the pandemic.
Okay, excellent. That's all. I mean, I think most of the community is excited about that. Let's go back to when did you start first getting, daily updates or information that you were getting from state officials that, hey, you need to start paying attention to this, the COVID that is, and at what point? Like, I know the lockdowns happened mid-March, but when did you actually start getting information that this was going to be something you were going to have to deal with on a somewhat daily basis?
So we actually, with our senior team and our emergency management teams in February, before we had a case in the country, and just to talk about a little bit about this. Before this process, Shawn, if you look at all of our departments in county government, our emergency management department is probably the one I was somewhat least familiar with, because we hadn't had emergencies to the degree where we needed to really communities. So they actually train, and their training is very similar to and so we started talking in February. I actually went to a conference with my peers across the country in early March. And while I was there is when the initial outbreak in the nursing home in Kings County, Washington. And right then we met with the White House and our New York State delegation. We got briefed to DC. And then when we got home, we started preparing and planning a situation where we would have this virus here. And so we immediately brought in all of our stakeholders, our hospital stakeholders, started looking at plans and preparation because it was all unknown. And so really in early March, we started preparing. We then, with our stakeholders, started putting in mitigation techniques, specifically our triage testing site that we got community health center before we had cases. And I think that's what helped us really in the beginning, not rates in the 20s and 30s. And I think the highest 7-day average we ever got to was 12 because we were testing before we had cases. But patient 0 in Westchester County, we saw what happened there. And then with our state or federal partners, because they inundated in response down in mainly our hospital networks working together to make sure that there was testing strategies, there was strategies and really monitoring how many beds that, people would have available when that time would come for people, needing the hospital level of care.
Mr. McMahon, could you speak a little bit about what is the process for reporting? How do these numbers get to you?
I get briefed in the morning, and again, it's changed a little bit now in almost September than in March, but I get briefed in the morning. I have a pretty good sense on where things are from, we report out essentially, we have our own reporting out as far as new cases go. And so the night before, I pretty much know what the case load is, but then I'll get data points related to testing, how many tests were done in the community. Is there anything with the cases that we need to look at as far as are these clusters? Are they community spread? Are they household contacts? Again, remember, household contacts, we have that baked in. Once we get one case, we know that there's going to be probably a chance of someone household getting the virus just because of how contagious it can be. So I'm getting all that information in the morning. We're looking at all these things. And then is there any reason for us to make any decisions based off of the data that we have in front of us?
So I feel like the data has been increasingly positive as you get it. So I don't know that the reaction to the positive news has been correlating along with it. I feel like we're still in, I don't know, what are we in, phase point 4.12 or something now? There hasn't been any seemingly update to go along, or increasingly word is here, but to correlating with the increased benefit or the increased positive news, we don't seem to be getting a relaxation of any of these restrictions. Yep. Is there something, I mean, I'm assuming this is mostly coming from the state. Is there anything that at the county level that we can do to take this new information and use it, and at least if it's not, maybe can't fight back against the state, but can we at least spread the positive news amongst the people here that we're getting better and that the world's not coming to an end, which I feel like a lot of people still feel they're very scared, and I don't know that they're getting the information the way that they should be getting the information.
Yeah, I think I agree, Shawn. And one of the things that's been frustrating in this process, remember, this has been a process where you're planning and preparing. You're then doing mitigation, right? Some of the mitigation people like, some of them they don't. I think overall, at the end of the pandemic, people will judge us based off of our complete body of work, because certainly Nobody's agreed with every decision we've made. But then at that point, you're planning, you're preparing, you're mitigating, you're in full-blown response to the virus for a period of time. And then you start working on response, restart, and then response, restart, and recovery. And I think what you're really referencing is that phase 4 restart. Every phase in restart, we anticipated that we would see small spikes in infection rates and positivity rates. But actually, the reality was that every step of the way things got better because people really bought into it. Businesses, when you let businesses open up, they'll follow the rules. It's easier to regulate the rules when businesses are open rather than when they're not open. From that standpoint, we got to phase 4, and phase 4 wasn't what we all thought it would be. And remember, early on, the state legislature gave the governor a very broad-based executive power authority. Even in that executive power, they even had the ability to limit some of our power here at the local level. So really what we've been doing is we've been messaging, working through our control rooms. Sometimes it's worked well, sometimes it hasn't. And so I would agree with you. If you look at where we are today, we have an infection rate under 1. We have a positivity rate under 1. And over the last 3 weeks, we've brought back over 20,000 people into the community who fit the demographic of where the virus has had 18 to 22 years old. So we've been able to bring all these people back, reopen our economy, and still keep the data where it is, which tells you overall the virus is not as strong as it once was. We still have situations where somebody will do something when they'll be sick and they go into a place and they spread it. And so we still need people to basically, if you're sick, stay home. And if you have COVID symptoms, go get a test. And if everybody did that, our data wouldn't be 0.7 or 0.8 7-day rolling average. It'd probably be closer to 0.3 or 0.4.
And so let's talk about some of the specific restrictions. I know you had made a plea to the state about trying to be a trial for gym openings here in New York. Obviously, they went ahead and reopened gyms under certain restrictions back on the 24th, I think it was. But you had tried to get out in front of that. Obviously, we had a local gym owner here who had sued the governor, tried to get her gyms reopened. What was your thought on your gym plan versus what the state did, and what was your thinking on trying to get out in front of that, I guess, and wedging your way into that?
Yeah, we've really, a couple different times in this process, we've had to try to push the envelope when we think that we've lost balance. And the balance of looking at overall, including the economic interest and the damage that the virus is having, compared with the threat in front of us due to us. And so I think phase 4, we've lost our balance to a degree. I think that was why with gyms, public health is more than COVID. We have folks who go to the gym because the doctor says you got to go work out. You have heart disease. You have diabetes. You need to have exercise as part of that regimen. They can't afford equipment at home. And this is how they stay healthy. We have mental health issues right now in this community like we've never had before because of the pandemic. And in that, we've had abuse with drugs and opioids. So gyms are a big help and a big solution to a lot of these things. So we wanted to get out in front. State went with a lot of our concepts. We're in the process of the state then told us we have to go really inspect all these gyms. This isn't something we've ever had.
You're going to take some gym classes in your research, right?
Yeah. And so we've been out doing that just so we can make sure these business owners stay open. They've been waiting and waiting and waiting. The public health needs them open, and our economy needs them open. So overall, in this process, there's been things when you look at churches opening up. They were opened up because we were pushing them to open up, quite frankly. You look at auto dealers when they opened up. I opened them up here locally, and that led to pressure to do them out throughout the state. So even though some have criticized my approach to this, because I don't throw bombs at other elected officials in the middle of a pandemic, we've pushed and we've pushed. I think the data shows that we need to. And at this point, the data shows that we can reopen up many of these industries a little bit more, open the valve up more, and then if you see more cases specifically to those industries, then there's a discussion. But one of the things we have now that we didn't have is we have over 200 contact tracers who contact trace every case. So folks pretty much get the virus in circumstances, whether it's travel related, whether it's a known source of community spread, what's household contact, a senior facility. We know now, so that allows us to make good decisions when you're talking about reopening the economy.
Talking about that, as far as economic consequences, obviously there's been a lot of talk about the national effects and how the GDP loss, to a lesser extent, people are aware New York State actually is faring far worse, at least from a GDP standpoint, than even the nation overall. Can you talk about what do you expect for Central New York as far as what has the cost been economically and business-wise for people's livelihoods?
Yeah, I mean, again, and it's different because you have certain sectors that are doing really well, but hospitality has gotten absolutely destroyed. And so we still have weddings on the sidelines, and I've been pushing for weddings and banquet facilities to be allowed to open up, utilize testing infrastructure, do what you got to do, put the regulations on, but allow them a chance. And so I just put forward a new proposal to the state that uses data and as a way to get these opened up more. But our hospitality industry has been absolutely decimated, and that's where we've seen most of the pain. But 13% unemployment, not good, not sustainable. When you look at our own budgets, when again, you shut down in March, you shut down in April, early May, and then you have phased in reopenings. Both big brothers of ours, the state and federal government told us we had to be shut down in March and April, right? Then in May, they kind of said, all right, time to open up the valve. So we're in a bad spot because 52% of our revenue is on sales tax. So not much going on when things are shut down. So hitting the pandemic, doing all the work on the ground, doing more and more work because we're being told we have to. And yet now we have all these economic losses ourselves. Our people have economic losses. And now, in addition to that, the state of New York saying that they're going to cut us, $20 million on top of it all. So tough spot to be in.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on your hospitality take there, so I've always found it somewhat, perplexing that an establishment, I feel like this was similar to the lawsuit that was brought up by the couple in Erie County, I think it was, where the venue could have 100 and 200 people at their venue the night before, but if they had called it a wedding the next day, it had to be under 50, which, it's the same venue, probably more intimate group of people that are more closely related and less likely to infect whatever. It seemed like complete backwards thinking, and maybe that's part of your proposal going forward. I'm sure you're well aware of.
I am. In Judge Sotheby's ruling in the Northern District, we really we saw a lot of wisdom in that. We were disappointed. We encouraged the state to try to work with all the stakeholders and the associations to figure out a way to do it safely. One of the things that I think there would be merit in is if you're coming in from out of state, you get a test within 48 hours, and do these things that point. We're now into, I think, millions of cases in our country, right? We can point to a case with anything. Every person who has every type of job has had COVID. Governors have had COVID. That doesn't mean the governors or elected officials don't go to work anymore because they had COVID. So even though weddings have had cases where there was things there, the reality is that most of those weddings, somebody came who was sick and they were symptomatic, and if they didn't come because they were sick, or if they got a test from out of state or out of the area, the spread probably never would have happened. So there's no 100% risk mitigation with any virus. We need to do our best to get to zero that we can with this one, because there's no therapeutic yet or vaccine. Boom.
So I kind of wanted to move to the probably, well, I guess at least my hot button topic is this nursing home issue. So just looking at Onondaga County specifically, I think there's 204 deaths, I believe we have. 127 were non-nursing home deaths. So those non-nursing home deaths were broken into.
Yeah, so the 127, there's 77 that were attributed to nursing homes, which we believe, again, we don't regulate nursing homes. We really tried to inject ourselves into this process early on. We believe the 7 died in the facilities, but out of the 127, we're confident some of those individuals lived in a nursing home, but went to the hospital and then died. But again, that's data that the state of New York has that we do not have.
So I guess that was going to be my question. If you don't have that number, if the state, I'm assuming somebody has that number.
Sure.
And it hasn't been released yet. So obviously this is not, you're not working for the state here, but is there some kind of timeline for that information to be released? It seems it would be very important to know if of those 127, 5 or 100 were coming from nursing homes, and if there was some ballpark idea, because if it's closer to the 100 number, what are we really dealing with here? But is there any kind of, I mean, I'm assuming that you would like to have that data as well, if you're not already, if it's not available to you. So how does the public and you guys, the public officials who need that data, get it?
Yeah, I think right now our state legislature and even the federal government's now looking into some of this and pushing this. And why it's important, and maybe this is where you're going, Shawn, is we know who gets impacted most by this virus, and almost every one of the deaths that we had, we believe had a pre-existing condition, and most of them very serious. So if you have a pre-existing condition, in addition to that, you're over 70 years of age, you get the virus, you're in for a fight. There's no question. And so if we knew all the data, where these folks were, and we know enough about our 204 neighbors that we've lost in this process, you can make decisions on how to protect those populations differently from the rest of the public. And that's something that's valuable information for us to have when we're looking. We do, I'm very confident, and the reports out that some sort of vaccine or therapeutic in 2020, but it may take till 2021 before it gets widely distributed and manufactured. So in the meantime, we have the beginning of flu season. Maybe we get a light start of winter here, which would be very good. But we still have more work to do here. So it's important that we make good data-based decisions with our economy. We're protecting those that are most vulnerable.
And what follow up to that list of 127, those are community and hospital deaths. I noticed there was 2, I don't call them outliers, but there was 1 in the 20 to 29 range and 1 in the 40 to 49 range. Do you have information on pre-existing conditions of those specific cases?
Yeah. 40 to 49 had pre-existing conditions. The 20 to 29, we believe, actually most likely died of something other than COVID, but we have not been able to 100% confirm that. So we've left that individual in that data. They may have passed because of something other than COVID.
Sorry about that. For nursing homes, did any of the nursing home directors or staff contact your office to talk about what was happening there? Or have you had any feedback from the industry?
So early on, we saw this coming, and we tried it because I speak to my peers, and I spoke to Steve Newhouse in Orange County down by the city, and he told me, right, like, I just got, a nursing home pretty much gone. I go, what do you mean? He goes, one case went in there. Everybody has it. I go, everybody? He said, everybody. And this is early on. We don't have any nursing home cases. So I tried to push with these nursing homes early on. We need to get in there and test everybody. And so we got pushback, and we got pushback because we're not the regulating agency. And so fast forward, what we wanted to do, the state of New York eventually did, And then the nursing homes wanted to work with us much more because they had to test and test regularly. And at that point, we were managing kind of the testing infrastructure within the community, and we had to pair up different buildings with different labs to meet those mandates. But initially, we were not getting good cooperation with the state or the state health department or the nursing homes themselves because we weren't their regulator, and so they didn't have to talk to us then. Later on, they were asking for our help.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think maybe that's the touching on the biggest problem of mine is the lack of transparency in this whole thing. I mean, we count our nursing home deaths different than every other 49 states, which should be a red flag unto itself. And there's all this anecdotal evidence that there's a problem here, that they seem to be, again, I don't know, covering up is the right word, but they're clearly not allow us access to the data to find out if it was or not. And I think that's been the frustration with most of the people here who are on the outside, who've been paying attention to know that the problem has been in the elderly and specifically the nursing homes. And then to have these handful of state governors, including our own, have this mandate where they force these facilities to take in positive patients and then not give us the data about it. So it seems like there's this huge circle of, again, cover-up going on, and I think that's where the frustration lies. It definitely lies in with me. Like, I wish this information was available. I think, again, you would be able to make better decisions going forward, as we all would.
Yeah, no, I think so, and I think
so
it is, and everybody should be frustrated. And the one light is, at least for us, the state legislature is finally doing something related to this to try to ask those questions, and they're all fair questions.
Yeah. So go ahead, Ben.
Just to return, I don't want to get too far off topic here. When we talk about a vaccine, herd immunity, whatever our way out of this is, as far as the experts that you have been speaking with, what are we expecting for a threshold or a herd immunity? How do we get out? What's it got to be?
Yeah, I think it's got to be therapeutics and a vaccine. If you think about immunity, certain parts of just to be able to qualify for restart. So I think what we're seeing is Pfizer, Moderna, they all got good stuff moving quickly. VA hinted this week that if they're comfortable enough with third stage trials, they might allow the manufacturing to happen. Then certainly I think you're going to find that you make the vaccine most spreadable to your most vulnerable, whether it's your seniors, your nursing homes, seniors assisted living facilities, emergency responders, teachers, and then that's how you get it going. But that allows the other game changer here, though, from an economic standpoint, guys, is if this Abbott's test, where $5, 15 minutes, if this thing has legs, and it's really 95% accurate, I don't know how you can keep some of these businesses on the sidelines the way they are, even with the virus there. I've always said, who cares if 1,000 people are together if we know nobody has COVID? Who cares? And so how do you know? You test. So having the challenge now is rapid testing. We've built up some of that infrastructure, but we're talking still 4 or 5 hours. If within 15 minutes you can take a test, cost you $5, and then go to a basketball game or go to a wedding or go to the bar or whatever you want. If everybody knows you don't have it, then this kind of takes care of itself.
The one specific, I guess, I don't know if it's industry is the right word. We didn't touch on schools specifically here. It should be back to school shopping, everybody kind of turning of the seasons here, getting ready for new exciting whatever, and we're not going to have that. It seems like everything's being delayed here, or several are being delayed anyway. But as we pointed out, the vulnerable people are not the school age kids. They're much older than that. If kids are not getting sick, and I don't want to use cases as a equivalent of getting sick. If they're testing positive, that's one thing. But if they're being hospitalized or having, problems from the virus, that's one thing. But if they're just getting sick, passing it asymptomatically amongst the kids, and that spreads equally, and there's no calamity from that, I'm trying to figure out where the problem is of open. See some teachers who may have some medical conditions, being vulnerable in that situation, but the kids themselves are not. I don't believe. I'm just a bartender, not a medical doctor here, but all the data says that the kids are not really vulnerable to this. What's the big holdup? Is it just vulnerable teachers?
Yeah, so that's a great. A couple things. I think I've been pretty vocal on this. Is that we've put this community in the best position possible for these districts to, from a position of strength, bring children back to school. And our preference was that we would bring back, at minimum, elementary age children. And why? Being you can't keep little kids home alone and have that be okay, right? I have a Children Protective Family Services department. If somebody calls me and says there's a 7-year-old home alone, that opens up an investigation, let alone potential for a child to really be looked at whether they're in a safe environment. So we can't make policy that's kids in that same boat. So that's A. B, when you look at the data, Shawn, that's all we do is we look at the data. 31 cases through 10 in Onondaga County. Out of the 31, I can tell you how they all got it. They all got it from a household contact from mom, dad, or a sibling. When you look at it, the kids, the little ones especially, weren't these super spreaders that people feared they could be in the beginning. And so what do? All right, so what we've done to have the safest back to school anywhere in this state is I've set up testing for all the school districts for the adults. Why the adults? 96% of our cases are adults. So we have the adults because the adults are most likely to bring it into the buildings, not the kids. And so adults don't have it. Good chance we're not going to have cases. PPE, sanitizing. We're going to be doing saliva-based pool sampling tests in the buildings throughout the year, looking for COVID. So when you look at what we've done, as far as we already started out in a bubble because of our low infection rate. And now because of the PPE, the distancing, the sanitizing, the temperature checks, you already create a miniature bubble. And then within that bubble, we're going to be doing more and more testing to find that case before it ever happens to spread. So we feel really good about that. What we want to do, we want to test the high school students. Why? We know the more socially active, sexually active kids have found COVID. It's a fact. And so if we, again, to your point, a lot of these kids are asymptomatic. We have had some symptomatic kids, but many of them are asymptomatic. Fine in the beginning and do isolate, quarantine, and then we go. So we think we put this community in a great position to succeed for a successful school year. We are really encouraging districts to reassess some of their planning because we think they can do more in some cases.
Touching on the younger children in elementary school, I'm going to throw this out here and I just want your feedback on it. My concern as a parent of young children is I'm going to send my 7-year-old to school every day with a mask on. I love my 7-year-old, but he's disgusting. What he does in that mask is horrific. And watching his ability to touch other things and other people and then go right back to his mask, it's not exactly my proudest moment as a parent. So sending him in wearing a mask to protect from the spread when I know the data says he's not at a great risk of spreading, he's not at a great risk of getting anybody else or himself sick. My concern is that the flu is still out there and other viruses are still out there that are actually a threat to children. Healthy children every year die of the flu. Is this concern at all legitimate, or am I just, I don't want to say overreacting, but am I missing the mark on that?
You're not right. So your concern for your kid, I respect where you're coming from. I think when you find balance issue, and again, you have various stakeholders, the mask wearing is a way to find balance. Originally, it was 6 feet apart, no masks. If you're going to be within 6 feet, you wear one, just like the adults, right? That makes sense. To your point, there are many other things that are going to be in the school in this semester. We're going to be working to address some of the flu stuff. And again, some parents are okay with the vaccine for their kids for the flu, some are not. But the hand sanitizing, something I think we can get really good at with the kids. I think that's our best. I'll give you this data point. In April of 19, I think we had 60 to 80 cases. April of 20, we had 0. So we attribute that purely to the hand sanitizing that was going on, efforts going on with COVID. That works for more than COVID. It works for all these other respiratory illnesses as well. But yeah, I don't think you're off. It's going to be tough, right? I got a 4-year-old. My 4-year-old, we've been practicing the mask wearing. He's, his dad's a county executive, so he's got to tough through it. But it's real. It's real for parents. I hear it. And again, it's going to be a challenge. But my hope is this whole process has been about giving the scientists and the doctors time to get a therapeutic, right? And once there's a therapeutic, we got to get back to before COVID.
And so, in part to do that, let's move past COVID a little bit here, but related. We talked about the financial struggles of the county, and I'm guessing it's going to be the state. So let's talk about the desire or the need for federal funding for some of the municipalities here that are struggling. Yeah. How do you tell the guy or the gal in Ames, Iowa, that their tax dollars should come to New York and help out me and you and Mr. Hussong over here and our struggle here in the county or in the state? I mean, there's going to be pushback.
Well, there is pushback, or else we would have gotten it in May, right? So they told us they're going to get this thing done in May, and they didn't. My pitch is very simple. I'm not asking. I had a 2019 balanced budget with a surplus. I had a 2018 balanced budget with a surplus. That surplus will help us get through this. But the reality is you told me to shut down federal government, bottom line. So this is an unfunded mandate. You told us to shut down. We did. The state told us to shut down. We did. So you need to cover the revenue loss during that period of time. And again, for us to weather this storm, and certainly is not helpful. You can't tell somebody to do something and pay for it. We scream about it all day long with the state government with unfunded mandates. The feds are in the same boat here.
And so let's turn to a project of yours. You're trying to help out some of these local businesses with the small business grant program. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So one of the nice things, and people could say, well, if County Industrial Development Agency for retention of jobs, they get paid in fees, IDA fees. And certainly Amazon gave us a very large IDA fee recently. So we're taking $500,000 of that. We're reinvesting it back into small businesses so that they can get grants, up to $10,000 awarded grants for pandemic-related business, whether it's PPE, whether it's ventilation systems, whether it's different things you had to purchase to be in compliance with new COVID standards. This is something that we can give back to them to help them a little bit more. And that's what we've been doing. From a regulation standpoint, Shawn, I think we talked early on, I have an executive order that allows outdoor dining to go into, not to have to go through any of the red tape through the zoning boards. If you have property and you want to put a table up to do outdoor dining, go ahead. So that's been very helpful for many of these restaurants as they have capacity constraints indoors that can make up those constraints outdoors. So we're open for your listeners. If they got any other ideas, we're all ears when it comes to ways to help the small businesses get through this pandemic and hopefully flourish.
Well, I promise you I'm not going to forward my emails that ask me a bunch of questions to you today, so we'll not go there. What didn't we touch on here? What else did the community know? I mean, I think we touched on a lot here, but like what did we miss, if anything, or what did you want to elaborate anything more on as we move forward?
Look, we live in a great community, and we've really responded well to what is a historic challenge. And I think for me, it's been very difficult because you've had every step of this process, you feel the anxiety, and these are real people's lives. And at times, I've been the face of this pandemic locally. So at times, people have reached out and said, "Hey, please open this up or that up." And if I had the power, I can say things would have been done a little differently. When it comes to certainly restart and the way we've done this. But overall, I'm proud of the community. People have done things that they don't necessarily believe in, but they've done them because out of respect for their neighbor and to help deal with that anxiety that they have. And so overall, we've done really, really well. I think we're really in the fourth quarter now. As I see your sports analogy here of sports, clicks, and politics.
Love it.
And so we just got to stay strong, not do anything. We know what works. We know the basics. We got to keep doing it because here's the deal. Not everybody wants to get back to 2019. Some people are actually having too much fun with this. So we need, for us to get our lives back, we still got to hunker down, be safe. So that our data stays where it is and we don't give others excuses to go backwards.
It's fair.
Yeah, I think that was fair. Executive McMahon, I'm going to let you go do more important things than hang out with us too. I appreciate your time and your input, and hopefully I'll be in touch here maybe in the future about maybe as we get into overtime of this or phase 5 maybe someday. But either way, sometime in the future, I'd like to touch base with you as we move out of this.
Hey, I'd love to. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. It was a informative interview, I think. I think we touched on everything we needed to touch on a little bit there and kind of get a lay of the land where we are and where we could be going. As we get more data, he seems to be plugged into the data, and if that's the case, hopefully that stays the same, and we move forward here. So I don't have much as far as additional content here. We're still in the NBA playoffs, and John Rahm won the first leg of the PGA playoff here. I don't really have anything to talk about other than I think he shot 6 under on Sunday to take out DJ, but
I mean, it was the 60-foot double breaking putt that he put in the playoff. That was, sort of a big deal.
I mean, he's one of those young guns. So,
yeah, I think that I love what he had to say about following the data and some of these things. As you and I have discussed, we seem to be making arbitrary rules at this point of just shooting it out there to make it sound good, and that can get frustrating. I can't say I share his optimism on a vaccine being ready by the end of 2020. I also don't share what I'm going to presume is his optimism that people will be willing to take said rushed vaccine on any sort of mass accounting.
Yeah, I mean, if we're using that to isolate the vulnerable, then
more
most
open
people
to it.
Yeah, so we'll see. Like I said, I'm not sure that how bad this ever really was. I guess if we could really get that nursing home number, that may give us some light on where the problem was at the beginning, in the middle, and the end. And we'll wait and hope that our governor will give that info to us, or the health department, or whoever in the State Department wants to be transparent for once. So
again, either our nursing home data is so much worse than what we are currently seeing, or our data for all non-vulnerable populations is so much worse than any other area of the world that it defies explanation.
Exactly right.
So you get to choose which of these paths you want as a New Yorker. Congratulations. Love all these fun options. I am going to throw this out there anyway. Our economic fallout from this is going to be vast. You're going to see it extrapolate out from New York City. This is bad. This is not something most people are ready to handle, and we're not going to have an immediate bounce back locally because nationally has a far less problem than New York State does overall, New York City specifically. So whatever we can do, just if you own a business, prepare for it, because this is going to continue being a problem. If a business goes under, yes, the market will correct that and a new business will come in where demand will go, but it's not instantaneous, and there's going to be delays. There's going to be issues. I don't know how we're going to recover from the loss of tax revenue, both at the state and local level. I honestly don't know.
No, I don't think anybody does, and I don't know that anybody could even fathom a time frame on that if there ever is one. So.
Right. And I think that if you think that's not a big deal, I encourage you that you're going to want to look around, because the number of wealthy people that are leaving New York City right now is high. And whether you like them or not, they do pay the vast majority of the income taxes in the state. For an example, the guy who just bought the Panthers, John Tepper, something like that. He's a hedge fund manager, lived in New Jersey, made all kinds of money. That man left New Jersey and moved to Florida, and they had to redo the state budget because it was that big of an impact when one guy left, because it was hundreds of millions of dollars of state tax revenue. If we lose 400 of the top 1,000 highest earners in New York State in 1 year, even if it's 200, if it's 20%, we have a large problem from a tax revenue standpoint. And now we want the federal government to bail us out. But the federal government is $25 trillion in debt. 26, I'm sorry. Can't forget that last trillion. Like, this is a number that is that's a 26 with 12 zeros after it before the period. These numbers are astronomical. And as much as I agree with the sentiment of if the government mandates you shut down, the government has to pay for it. We are not a monarchy. We are a representative republic. And that is part of the takings clause of our entire Constitution. If the government takes it from you, they have to compensate you. I just don't know where we're going to get the money from.
They're going to print it.
You can't draw blood from a stone. You're going to keep printing money. Well, at least that's never ended poorly.
No. Well, like I said, that's what they got. They can print it. There's no way they're going to be able to pass a bill through Congress that's going to fund anybody. Like, it's just not going to happen. They will print the money. Inflation will be what it is, and we'll all suffer the consequences in the long run. So,
and it's just going to continue down this path of, yes, that will kick the can down the road, but eventually the bill comes due. And I don't care if you're a municipal government, state government, or the federal government, you are not immune from basic accounting principles. So watching this happen, I have concerns on state pensions, state funding for the more welfare-related programs, the public employees.
Listen, there's going to be a reshuffle of government, especially in this state, in this county, in this city. There's going to be a culling of services. We're just not going to have the money to do it. So they're going to have to find additional ways to fund some of this stuff. Maybe I can, piggyback on my boy Larry Sharp when he ran for governor in 2018 about trying to find public, like, naming rights things for some of these public assets that we have, bridges and tunnels he used in his campaigning. So maybe there's things that we can do that to raise some money, but it's not going to offset the total losses. There's no way. So
no, and
it's devastating.
It's that we all freaked out at the end of the last quarter when it came out that the U.S. had lost 8% of GDP year over year. Everybody lost their mind. It was the worst number ever, and it was on pace for a negative 32% on the year. It was negative 8.25%. That same quarter, New York State did negative 16. When I tell you it's worse, I don't mean it's a little worse. I mean it's markedly worse, and we are dragging on our restrictions longer than anybody else is, with almost no data to back that up.
No,
it makes no sense.
Like I said, I feel like the data we need, they're hiding. So,
well, that's because then people would realize they made a mistake, and they would maybe stop placing such blind faith in these leaders, not counting our county executive. I'm talking state level right here, because it wasn't Ryan McMahon's order that said the nursing homes had to take the sick people, and they weren't allowed to test them. Right. That was our governor. So guess what? You get to choose. Either Andrew Cuomo made a horrendously wrong decision with that, or Ron DeSantis is a genius with the foresight that nobody else had to protect the nursing homes. You could choose whichever one of those you want, but one of them's true.
Right. Well, like I said, I think the county executive was on it. He's on hospitalizations. He's on deaths. He sees where the data needs to be, and obviously the age disparity is something that people are still becoming aware of, even though it's been out there since the beginning. So, on that note, Mr. Hussong, anything else you'd like to leave the audience with?
It's just so nice to actually hear somebody that's an elected official use accurate data and not be afraid of saying what is obviously true.
Yeah.
I almost don't know what to do with it, but good for him, and I'm very happy that he is our county executive.
Yeah, and like I said, as we move forward to this, we'll bring him back on, try to get a reassessment of where we are. Hopefully we actually get out of whatever these phases are, and we're actually just living our lives and not have any kind of qualification with it. So on that note, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, coming in today for the first live interview for us. I know we had a little hiccup there and a little late start, but I think we worked it out. Next week, Labor Day Monday, we are going to have a show. It's probably just going to be me and Ben here talking it out. I will say, I believe I'm going to have, maybe I haven't even told you yet this, Mr. Hussong, but our September 14th guest, former PGA professional Jim Roy, is going to join us. Hey. He's going to kind of talk about what it's like. He's caddying for his son on the Corn Ferry Tour these days, and he is going to talk about all the testing and whatnot that they have to go through for being on the tour. It's the very same as the PGA, and he's going to give us a little bit of U.S. Open breakdown. So we got U.S. Open that week, and he's going to kind of talk about that. So that should be fun.
Outstanding.
So check with us next week for just me and Ben. We'll try to keep you entertaining, and following week on the 14th there, we'll talk golf, all things golf with Jim Roy. So on that note, thank you very much, and we'll see you all again next week. Not seamless, but whatever. I mean,
it got done.
I see Shawn was watching.
Again, I just laugh when he's talking about, well, we'll have a vaccine, but it probably won't be available until 2021. Like, oh,
It'll be all gone by then.
You optimist. Look at you.